This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. Underwear drawers are like the Wild West. You never know what you're going to pull out or what shape it's in. So upgrade your collection with the buttery soft comfort of MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. Plus, it's breathable and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all-day wear. Get 20% off your first order, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Spotify with code SPOTIFY. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify. Code SPOTIFY.
We
are
Cultivate.
cultivate.
We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hi.
We are surrounded by our furry children this sunny Sunday afternoon.
Yes, my furry child is like, ma'am, ma'am, ma'am.
Like, hey, you're doing something that doesn't concern me. Pay attention to me now.
She knows we're going somewhere, and she's
Yeah.
doing everything she can to be as clingy as possible, which I understand, because I am going to feel like a monster dropping her off on Thursday.
Yeah, I bet. My partner left for 3 weeks to this morning. We left out 2 of his stinkiest sweatshirts for his baby boy Chief to sleep on while he's gone, because we're going to have a really fun interaction when he comes home with a new dog after 3 weeks.
That's right.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, just gearing up for that. Lots of little comforts and pets, and maybe some calming pheromone spray will be purchased in the house and active in the house before he comes back. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
All right. When this comes out, it will be the tail end of the last sale at our TeePublic shop this month. So the last sale is February 17th through the 23rd. So you'll still have a couple days to enjoy 35% off everything in the store. So if there's something you've been like, I want that, go do it.
Yeah, treat yourself, because the 17th, which is tomorrow for us in the past, that's my diabetes-versary. So treat yourself, celebrate not having diabetes or having diabetes.
Whichever
With
is
a fun shirt, Scully, something. Treat yourself.
Or our perpetually moist design, which is a fun one.
I like the danger grass, the prairie grass one.
It's funny that you say that, because I got a message from our friend Dustin sometime last week, and he said that he bought the deathgrass one.
Stop!
So he was rocking his deathgrass shirt. So
That's so fun. Thank you so much, Dustin.
thanks, Dustin. You need to share a picture, because I love that design and I love you. So
Oh, I love you too.
share it.
Yeah. This sale is a diabetes-versary sale, unofficially.
And you won't know that until it is started, but that's fine.
It's fine. You don't need to know.
No.
TeePublic doesn't need to know. It's a little secret between us. It's how we know that you actually listen. You know?
So I unintentionally stuck with the paranormal-ish theme.
Ooh.
With this week's topic, which we will be discussing Poland's Fields of Vampires.
Ooh, this is going to be really interesting, but also probably really gross. Not too gross?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just that area in vampires, they were pretty swift and harsh, if I remember.
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Nip that in the bud.
Information was pulled from the following sources: a 2024 Archaeology News Online article by Dario Radley, 2024 CNN article by Katie Hunt, 2024 Daily Mail article by Harry Howard, 2024 Daily Mail article by Jonathan Chadwick, 2024 Express article by Rebecca Robinson, 2024 LitHub article by Ed Simon, 2024 Reuters article by Thomas Holdstock, 2023 Indy 100 post by Alex Daniel, 2023 Mirror post by Ryan Fahy, one of those, 2022 Haaretz article by Victoria Greenboim Rich, 2017 Smithsonian Magazine article by Joshua Rapp Learn, 2015 Lund Archaeological Review article by Leszek Gardela, 2014 Gizmodo article by George Dvorsky, and a History UK article.
Dang, thorough. And 2024 was quite the year to... I think we missed the year to...
The year of vampires, apparently.
The
we
year
missed
of vampires, it. Wow.
Who knew? Not me. Missed it.
We know now, I guess.
Hindsight is always 2020.
It really is. Yeah.
And thank you so much to Carrie Ann for her research assistance for this episode, and links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Yield Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
All right, picture this.
Okay.
Imagine you are out with your partner, excavating with a trowel on a hill, when you suddenly hear the sound of it striking metal. Odd, right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, unless you're digging for treasure.
You're there for a reason. But even odder, and one would argue more horrifying, would be to then clear away some of the soil and debris to discover that what you've uncovered is a body, but not just any body, one with a sickle over its neck and an iron padlock on its toe.
I remember those legends. Yep. You discovered a vampire body, a suspected vampire body. A sickle on the neck?
Around the neck. So if they would have tried to sit up, it would have decapitated them.
Dang. And I bet they made those really sharp too.
Yeah.
Thank God it's a dead body.
Yeah. So this was the reality of Professor Dariusz Polinsky and his partner Magda Zagrodska in 2022 outside the village of Pien in northern Poland, where they had been working. They couldn't have known at the time was that their innocent discovery would uncover something much darker, the grave of a vampire, quote unquote. Now, understandably, archaeologists from Torrens Nicolaus Copernicus University, who were part of Darius's team, wanted to know more about the 18 to 20-year-old woman who would go on to be named Zosha. After uncovering the rest of her remains, which would go on to reveal that she had passed over 400 years ago in the 17th century, they discovered a possible deformity on her breastbone that would have not only caused her constant and severe pain, but would have raised fears that she was a vampire.
Okay.
Analysis of her skull led the team to believe she may have suffered from a health condition that caused severe headaches and even fainting. She also had a protruding tooth, so she had some physical deformities.
Yeah. So she was a little different looking, is what it sounds like.
When she was found, Zosha had a cap on her head made of silk fabric and metallic threads of silver and gold, which meant she would have been someone of high social status, despite her deformities.
Okay.
DNA and chemical isotopes were used to learn more about her, and due to the fact that she passed away amidst the Swedish-Polish Wars, researchers speculate that she may have originated in southern Scandinavia and been Swedish, thus marking her as a quote-unquote unwanted outsider in the region.
But then why was she buried in such finery?
I don't know.
They respected her
Highborn.
enough to bury her well-ish, aside from the whole you're a vampire thing.
Yeah. And according to an article by CNN, quote, Europe in the 17th century was also in the grip of what's known as the Little Ice Age, a period of cooling that in some places led to crop failure and famine, end quote. So keep that in mind. So factoring in the time of her death, the placement of the sickle over her neck, and the padlock on her left big toe would have been used as a sort of double protection to ensure she couldn't rise from the grave. The significance of the padlock on the big toe is believed to symbolize the closing of her life cycle, and the fact that both were made from iron, which was thought to protect against the supernatural.
It'd be funny if ironically they used like limestone. Because like lime is supposed to be like super conductive. Like instant vampire creation.
Darius doesn't believe that the sickle and padlock were placed on Zosha at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So according to that same interview with CNN, quote, initially she was buried in a coffin in a natural position, with the head towards the west and on a pillow, and the padlock on her toe. So she was buried with the padlock.
Because they were concerned. They were like, she looks weird, and she's an enemy, so let's just do this.
Maybe because of some misfortune or the death of somebody else, they decided to open the grave, end quote. So there was some external event.
Yeah, like maybe a disaster, some sort of sickness came through shortly after she died, and she was the
catalyst.
The scapegoat.
During the process of opening her coffin and disturbing her remains, her spine became twisted, likely as they were attempting to place her face down. So instead, they chose to secure the sickle over her throat to prevent her from rising from the dead. Zosha's is the only skeleton that was found with the sickle around her neck.
Man. So she was definitely suspected of being a vampire, or somebody just really didn't like her.
Zosha's final resting place was unmarked, and no other headstones or churches were in the nearby vicinity.
What were they doing in the air? Like, what were they looking for? Were they looking for her? Was there like a suspected thing, or like?
I'm going to kind of get into it, but
Okay.
They were excavating the area because this area and some areas that are very close by are known, I don't want to say hotbeds because they're not really hotbeds, but known places of these types of burials.
Okay. So they were digging there because they've discovered other kind of random unmarked graves.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. This was kind of like a weird othered people burial ground almost.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Darius believes that she was likely taken out to the remote location and abandoned due to fears that she was a vampire.
That makes sense. I mean, if I was starving and everything in my life was turning upside down and it all kind of happened when that person died, I'd be afraid of her too, I guess.
Historian Dan Jones notes of Zosha's discovery, quote, I have to admit, when I first saw the pictures, I was incredibly excited. I have never seen anything like this before. Is this a crime scene? Is this evidence of the supernatural? Is this evidence of a unique craze? Or are we in fact stepping back into an entirely different world in which Europe was governed by totally different rules? End quote.
Probably a mix of all of it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
In an interview that Darius gave with The Times, quote, what we know for sure is that this place, this cemetery, was for people who were excluded from the community. There are no historical sources about this place, which is very strange. It means that it was a cemetery for people who were abandoned. It has been written out of history. It can be assumed that for some reason, those burying the woman were afraid that she would rise from the grave. The sickle was not laid flat, but placed on the neck in such a way that if the deceased had tried to get up, most likely the head would have been cut off or injured.
That's so scary. Ugh.
Ways to protect against the return of the dead include cutting off the head or legs, placing the deceased face down to bite into the ground, burning them, and smashing them with a stone. End quote.
I don't know how you could. There must have been, like, it'd be really interesting to see what that kind of panic was at that time, because you have to think, like, how palpable is that panic to desecrate a body like that? Like,
Well, and not only that, but like the body of someone who is of high standing as well.
yeah, because you're kind of going against everything at the time. Like, almost every religion, like, you do not damage the physical body because that's the body that carries you to whatever afterlife you're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you want to really, ruin somebody's afterlife, you mess with their bodies. So but that's not like something people take lightly. That's crazy. That, like, I just can't imagine it. Like, I don't know. Like, just really smashing the head in of somebody that's dead, just in case. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
In 2024, the story of Zosha once more resurfaced following a facial reconstruction that had been made of her.
Ah, okay. So that's what the hotbed was, is she got a new photo online and everybody started liking it.
Darius and team worked with famed Swedish facial reconstruction expert Oskar Nielsen, who performed a digital scan of Zosha's skull in order to make a copy with the aid of a 3D printer. Using clay and silicone, he was able to give her quote-unquote muscles and skin. This is the same archaeological reconstructionist that did the face of the woman from Jonestown.
Oh, wow.
And I think he also did the one witch that we covered too, where there was like facial reconstruction of her.
Yeah. Like, how fascinating of a thing.
Yeah. I don't know if he was involved with the priestess from Lulaiko, the maiden.
That's awesome. Like, how do you get that career? How do you start
I know.
that job? Like, it just sounds so cool. Like, you get to be an artist and a historian and, like,
Yeah, like he did like a bunch of research into like genealogy of what people like looked like in that time, like based off her ancestry, what sort of facial features she would have had, all this stuff. Like, it's crazy.
yeah, like, just researching, like, what your skin texture could potentially be like with the climate at the time, because we have all of that information. It's just, I can't imagine piecing that all together. That would take so much time.
Yeah.
Depending on when they engaged with him, it sounds like a couple of years before they would have unveiled it after finding her, because they found her in 22 and the photo went up in 24.
I'm gonna send you.
I'm so excited. I really want to see it. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm sorry, but if she's supposedly deformed, like, what? She's really pretty. She does.
I think it was some sort of, based off some of the articles that I read, the deformity was on her breastbone, so it's likely she had some sort of tumor. And that's what the deformity was.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, because the tumor, a lot of the time, they believed like any sort of extra tumors, abscesses, and stuff were like devil's marks. So I bet she was probably able to hide it well until she died, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. The most chilling thing about Zosha's discovery isn't just the means that were taken to protect the people who buried her from her rising from the grave. It's the fact that she wasn't the only one. In fact, she was one of around 100 people who had been buried in what is now referred to as the Field of Vampires.
Okay. So this was a pretty intense panic then.
The site, which is located near Dąbrowa Chełmińska in northern Poland, was first excavated in 2005, and the field was used as a cemetery for around 4 generations in the 17th century, although there are no records of its existence or any features of it on any maps.
Eerie.
Those interred in this area include a pregnant woman with her fetus still in her womb,
Oh.
a woman with advanced syphilis, a man buried with the corpse of a child at his feet, and the remains of a partially exhumed child. Of the nearly 100 graves, about 30, like Zosha's, bear signs of the interred being restrained.
That's not good. So that's definitely likely a bury alive situation.
Or
wasn't dead fully and couldn't do anything and
similar to Zosha's, something was put to prevent them from being able to get out.
yeah.
So Zosha's is grave number 75 at the unmarked cemetery, which is located
Dang.
outside the city of Bydgoszcz. In 2023, a child's remains were found face down with the upper torso missing, and a padlock
God.
similar to Zosha's was found beneath the legs.
So sounds like they were successful in doing what they had attempted with Zosha on this child. Oh God.
I couldn't confirm if that was the one that was like partially exhumed.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
that would make sense, since it was technically a partial body that was found.
Darius believes the unmarked cemetery was designed specifically for the unwanted and excluded members of the community. And considering there are no written records of any of the deceased, identification of the victims will be a significant task, if they're even able to do it at all.
Maybe not now, but hopefully in the future. I mean, this DNA stuff that we're seeing now is crazy.
Yeah, like just last week, they were like, this is the guy that was Jack the Ripper. It's crazy.
Casual. Oh, hey, we found him.
Anyway, many of those uncovered had been buried face down, were weighed down with stones, or had been buried with coins in their mouths.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the practice of having coins placed in the mouth had to do with the belief that the silver would trap their soul in their body, as well as pay for their passage to the underworld.
Oh, yeah. So they can use that body when they go to the underworld. Have you seen that Netflix show with Jeff Goldblum as Zeus?
Chaos? You mentioned it and I haven't watched it yet.
You really should. They have a similar, if you don't have the coin, you're kind of
SOL, yeah.
You're just trapped, yeah.
So Shah, in Darius's opinion, would have to have been especially feared to have had a sickle placed about her neck. This practice was rare, although not unheard of. The belief and fear of the undead in Eastern Europe dates back to the 11th century, and vampire myths in particular date back to the late 17th and 18th centuries. The fear was that the undead would manage to crawl their way out of the ground and back to the surface in order to attack the living. These folktales are very prevalent in countries like Poland and Serbia, where they are passed down from generation to generation.
It really makes you wonder what started it. Were people buried alive at the time and came out, and then it just kind of became a wives' tale ever since? Because, it's happened before.
Yeah.
It's not completely unheard of, and they didn't embalm people then, so...
Well, this might have something to do with it. So in the 7th and 9th centuries, the Slavic people were starting their conversion to Christianity.
Okay. What were they before?
Pagan, I believe.
Okay.
Prior to that, they cremated their dead. So the practice of burying their bodies was horrifying to some of them. And around the world, many people believed that sharp tools forged with fire had anti-demonic properties.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the idea of burying their dead versus releasing their souls via fire could have led to the belief in them rising from the grave. Like, why didn't you do this? I'm supposed to be burnt to pass on.
That makes sense. Especially like I can imagine just, with history's shown us how awful it is trying to convert a massive group of people to a different mindset
Mm-hmm.
and like general lifestyle and existence. So being the first people to bury your parents instead of burning them after generations and generations, that would be scary.
And as with witch hysteria in the past, the beliefs in vampires became so widespread that it led to mass hysteria, even executions.
Yep. We're really familiar with that on this podcast.
Yep. It's kind of something we cover a lot.
It's kind of a yearly thing.
It is a yearly thing. For people who passed away in untimely ways, so think like alcoholism or completing suicide being examples, you would have immediately been suspected of being a vampire.
Mm.
In order to prevent their return, their corpses would have been mutilated in some fashion. For example, in the 15th and 16th centuries in the Balkans, people would nail corpses to the ground.
Ew.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I'm like, how far do you go? Did they dig 6 feet back then too?
I don't know, but I don't like it.
I don't like it either. You stay right there forever.
More mass graves have been found since the discovery of Zosha, and even before her discovery. So in 2008, a number of decapitated skeletons were discovered at a burial site near... I knew I forgot to translate one. Damn it. Damn it. I don't know. Polish? I would not have said it like that. All right. In 2008, a number of decapitated skeletons were discovered at a burial site near Gliwice with holes drilled through their legs or bricks placed in their mouths.
Oh my God. Wow. So there was a lot of intense hatred or fear or all of the above, like desperation. Because I can't imagine doing this to like a body. Like, what? I just can't. Especially if I knew them. Like,
Yeah. So that same year, in 2008, in the small village of Starorypin Przewocne, Poland, which in 2022 had a population of 90 people, the Rypin commune, or cemetery, was home to the graves of several quote-unquote vampires.
Okay.
During an excavation of the late medieval cemetery, the skeleton of a man who was between 40 to 50 at the time of his death was discovered on the very fringes of the cemetery, which would have been a sort of punishment, because he would have been like on the edge of consecrated ground.
Right.
Analysis revealed that he was tall, over 6 feet, and he suffered from a number of developmental anomalies, such as the crowding and distortion of his front teeth. More excavations were conducted in the same area in 2009 and 2014. The remains of another man who was 20 to 25 at the time of his death was discovered, who was very short, around 160 centimeters in height, or just 5'3", which isn't really that short, but I don't know.
Yeah, excuse you, that's me. So like we're fine. It's average.
All right.
Rude.
Maybe they have really tall men in that area, so that was unusually short.
Like Sweden and stuff, they were taller. Like Vikings were taller.
I feel like they are taller people generally, so maybe that, yes, would be abnormally short in that area.
Yeah.
But I consider that average. Anyway, this man was also buried on the far perimeter of the cemetery, face down. His arms were also bent at the elbows, giving the impression that they had been tied together at the time he was buried. So tied behind his back when he had been moved face down.
Gosh, they would have had to do this like right after death, right? Or like
either that or I don't want to think about how they,
Nope, don't want to think about it. Yep. They did it right after death. End of sentence. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
A 50 to 60-year-old woman was buried with a cylindrical padlock by her shin. This type of padlock was really only used in the 11th to 14th centuries and is very rarely found inside graves, with only a handful being discovered to date. So it was like a padlock, but it had this very, like, instead of being a box shape, it had
Yeah.
this like cylinder, like almost like you would put it around a finger or something and then lock
Huh.
it. It's very, very unique, very interesting.
Hmm.
I don't know why it was by her shin, but whatever.
I it just makes me think like maybe they like ran out of what they normally used and like made do with
Yeah.
like another like was meant to be a finger or toe thing
Yeah.
potentially.
Another woman who is believed to have been between 20 and 35 at the time of her death was found buried without her head. And
Ah.
yeah.
Okay.
And another woman was buried with a large boulder placed on her belly. So she would have been unable to get up.
Yep.
In 2014, the remains of 6, I'm going to say this wrong, apotropaic burials, or burials designed to ward off evil,
Okay.
were compared to the remains of 60 normal internments in the same area to try to determine
Okay.
why certain people were being viewed as vampires,
Right.
but not all of them.
Right.
The team conducting the research was led by Leslie Gregorica from the University of South Alabama. Her team used radiogenic strontium isotope ratios from the enamel of the teeth of the remains. They
Interesting.
compared the biogeochemical analysis to the same isotopes of local animals in the area. So to kind of determine like if they had been eating things where they lived.
Yeah, like were they actually like there or were they placed there?
Yes. And what they discovered was that those suspected of being vampires were primarily locals in the area, not outsiders.
Hmm.
So like in Zosha's case, she would have been an outlier in that because she
Yeah.
was an outsider.
It makes me wonder if she was like prisoner of war or something potentially, since that war was happening.
Or if she had like cholera or something, if she
Yeah.
had some sort of disease. And
Passing through and died.
so what could cause suspicion to be cast upon people in the area? Some theorize that it could have something to do with disease pandemics.
Super common then. There's like at least 12.
There was a cholera outbreak, and usually the first person to pass is viewed as the cause and the
Yep.
possible reason behind it if we want to look at it through a supernatural lens.
Yep. Patient zero.
That same year, 2014, which was a very popular year in archaeology apparently,
Yeah. Lots of funding.
an archaeological team in Sozopol, Bulgaria, discovered a stone tomb that was home to a skeleton that was held down by an iron sickle.
Hmm. Kind of like her.
Each one of its teeth had been pulled out.
Oh, that took time and effort. That was a choice. Who do they think that like the vampire couldn't bite them then? That's
I
probably the
think
reason.
so.
Yeah, like can't bite me with no teeth, bitch.
Well, and the sickle was over the torso instead of by the neck, like it was with Zosha.
Ah, so they're like, you can't run after us either. We'll
Yeah.
cut your legs off.
And typically with the use of sickles, which wasn't a common practice, they would be placed, like I said, over the torso. I think with the idea being that even if they tried to escape the grave, if they were
Mhm.
cut in half by iron, their spirit would pass on and they would no longer be a sort of revenant.
Ah, okay.
And it is also in extremely rare cases that researchers have found sickles placed above the neck. So Zosha's is one of very few cases they've ever run across where that was the
Interesting.
case.
You know, I don't know if with the war being happening around then, I wonder if it being by her neck was just because she was also potentially an enemy,
Maybe.
you know?
Because if the common thread was that these were people that you knew that were
Yep.
being accused of being a vampire,
Hmm.
even though you wanted to prevent them from coming out and killing you, you wouldn't be overly harsh about it.
Mm-mm. No.
Because they were like turning their bodies over or putting rocks on them. Although, yeah, we'll get to it. So in 2023, a mass burial site of 450 individuals, significantly larger, was found by road workers outside Luzino in northeastern Poland as they were excavating land for a road expansion.
That to me just screams disease or famine.
They discovered hundreds of bodies that had been buried near a church. The reason for their concern was that many of the bodies had been decapitated, with the skull placed between their legs. Some had bricks placed around their head and limbs, and others had coins placed in their mouths, which we have seen and discussed prior to this.
Yep.
An archaeologist that was called to examine the site, named Maciej Stromski, noted that if it was believed you were a vampire, it was likely due to another member of your family suddenly dying not long after your funeral. So if you died and someone else in your immediate family passed shortly after, they thought you were the cause, that you were a vampire.
Yep. That I was the angry spirit or the vengeful thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is why they would then be exhumed, have their head removed, and reburied at their feet. They even discovered the corpse of one woman who had the skull of a child placed on her womb, which is horrifying.
That's really scary. That must have been a very desperate situation if they were doing that to quite literally everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but in a burial of that many people, when do you pause and be like, hey, maybe this isn't working?
Yeah.
You know, like when does your fear and faith go like, I keep cutting these heads off and these people keep dying. Maybe I just leave the bodies alone and just, wash my hands. But what's soap?
Yeah, that's in Gora Helmska in Helm, Poland, 2 children who received the anti-vampire burial are believed to have been buried as far back as the 13th century, with their remains discovered after the removal of tree roots. So it was like a pre-scheduled thing where they were just removing tree roots, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay.
There's a body attached to this root.
There's some children here.
Better stop.
The excavation, led by Dr. Stanisław Golb, an archaeologist with the Lublin Voivodeship Conservator of Monuments, discovered that the pair were buried in an area that had not previously been associated with any known cemetery.
Got it. So yeah, this was definitely an outlier field of unwanted.
What makes this discovery unique is that the skull of one of the children had been intentionally removed and placed face down in the grave.
Oh, that sounds symbolic.
The rest of their body had been held down by heavy stones.
So yeah, I wonder if this was the first kid that got sick or something.
They discovered the presence of post holes at the site, which led researchers to believe that it had been marked at one point in time and monitored to ensure that the dead did not rise from the grave.
God, I can't even fathom living in a time where this was just common.
It was just normal.
Yeah. How scary. God, no wonder why everybody died like when they were like 32.
Yep.
Stress.
Yeah. Near the grave, 3 more children were discovered in a pit. Analysis on the enamel of their teeth and the bones of their jaw revealed traces of copper, potassium permanganate, and gold. It's theorized that they may have been part of a potion designed to treat and cure vampirism.
Which would have killed them because you can't process the minerals like that in your body.
So because this was 5 children that were all next to each other, I'm wondering if this was some sort of disease that children would
Mm-hmm.
be particularly susceptible to, because it didn't say how old the
Yeah,
children were either.
right. It makes me want. It sounds like like kids that would play together or something all got the same illness, and then were treated
Yeah.
as such. God,
Mhm.
horrible.
Due to the number of excavations that have taken place around Eastern Europe, primarily in Poland, historians and researchers have started to theorize why certain people may have been buried the way they were. Those who completed suicide or were executed would have their bodies treated much differently than those of high moral standing.
High moral standing, sure. Yeah, I really wonder what constituted as high moral standing at the time.
Those that were,
I know. Yeah.
died of natural causes, whatever. The bodies of these individuals would likely have been dragged, burned, quartered, or just tossed into a grave or pit.
Jeez.
And the list is endless, really. If you
Mhm.
died tragically, you weren't baptized, you were a sleepwalker, if you had debt, if you had birthmarks, a disability, if you were sly or cruel, any of those reasons or more could have viewed you as a potential vampire after death.
It was a tough time.
It was a tough time to die
Yeah.
and not have your body mutilated.
And to just exist.
Mhm.
Like, sounds like there were lots of judgments.
Mhm. If you want to learn more about the work
kinda
of
do.
Darius and his team and their efforts to uncover the true identity of Zosha, it's part of a documentary that was produced by Caravan Media titled Field of Vampires, which came out in October of 2024 and was released as part of PBS's Secrets of the Dead series.
Cool.
My final thing I want to note is some words that Oscar had to say regarding Zosha's reconstruction. Quote, "It's emotional to watch a face coming back from the dead, especially when you know the story about this young girl. It's really ironic in a way. These people burying her, they did everything they could in order to prevent her from coming back from the dead. We have done everything we can in order to bring her back to life. I'm used to reconstructing faces, but in this case, also, I'm looking forward to giving her some human dignity back. She deserved something better." End quote.
They all did.
And that is Zosha and the various fields of vampires that you can find in Poland.
Crazy. It's so fascinating. Like, I just so wish that we could hurry up and advance our technology even more to learning more. Because, like, growing up as a kid in the 80s and 90s, we had our fascination with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and our favorite stories back then are like coming back now with DNA. And it's so cool. Like, you kind of don't want to know, but you do.
Mm-hmm. It's like, do you want to keep the mystery alive, or do you want to close the chapter for good?
Yeah. Like, how do you want to preserve or revive their humanity?
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
On that note, this week's podcast plug is Creepy Tapas Podcast.
Nice. Tapas. Ooh.
Hosted by Ash Midlar, Creepy Tapas serves small plates of horror to create a whole-ass meal for genre junkies.
Nice.
Horror movie reviews and interviews, real-life tales of terror that inspired the silver screen, horror literature reviews, and book versus movie discussions you won't want to miss. So dim the light and get ready. It's time for Creepy Tapas. They are part of the Darkcast Network, and we'll have a link to their show in the show notes.
Nice.
We love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Yield Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
And this week's listener question comes from Carrie Ann, and she would like to know, a rockfall traps you in a cave system with a bear. What do you do?
Become best friends with that bear and sleep, hibernate with him, and then go scavenge for berries in the spring. I just live happily ever after with it, and or it just kills me and eats me and goes to sleep. It's fine. But I hope we become friends. That's very much like the white lady trope.
Yep. We become
Puppy.
best friends. Gotta pet that dog. Gotta pet that dog.
Exactly.
I would do something similar. I'd be like, let's be best friends. We're going to go on silly misadventures together after we get out of this cave.
Yep.
And we'll go take down the patriarchy. It'll be great.
Yeah. Ride it into the sunset and we'll, climb trees and shit. It'd be great.
Go play in the water together.
Scratch our backs on bark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hang out with salmon.
Yep. Do some fishing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go fishing.
Yeah. The bear would obviously love trying smoked salmon for the first time. Can't do that without thumbs.
Mm-hmm. You cannot cook salmon without thumbs.
Nope.
Very difficult.
You're welcome, bear.
That's how we become best friends.
Yep, that's how you get them. Because before you got locked in that cave, you had smoked salmon with you. There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. If you want to send us some questions, you can slide into our DMs or you can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com. On that note, what is something good you'd like to share?
I'm trying to think because it's just like nothing bad has really happened. Right? But I've been like in a sick fog for a little bit. So nothing's really great at the moment. Oh, I don't know. I started I have a new hyperfixation snack that I've been making.
What's that?
It's so they came out with a new cereal called Oreo Puffs.
Okay.
And it's like Cocoa Puffs, but Oreo, and then they have the little marshmallows as like the cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been making like a pseudo puppy chow with it. I was fancy last time and browned some butter, got some pistachio butter and peanut butter, and then I put collagen powder in it to like pretend that I'm getting some sort of nutrition from this snack.
Sure.
Right? And then I melt like a little bit of chocolate chips, not a lot, because I like to have the peanut butter, the nutty taste forward. And then I coat it and then eat it whenever I'm low. So
Nice.
I made some this morning and I was like, heck yeah, made a fresh batch.
Nice.
Oreo puppy chow, kind of, question mark. But yeah, I was baking a little bit again, which was nice. It always makes me happy. Being sick, I haven't done a lot of it because I don't want to be Typhoid Mary. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, so I kind of put that on pause for a couple weeks. So it was nice to start making my own stuff again. How about you?
I am
Next week?
grateful that I will be going on vacation next week. Right now, it is like stressing me the fuck out because I have so many things that need to get done before I leave. Like literally the day before I fly out, I have to fill my vehicle with Girl Scout cookies, have my co-leader come and take some of them from me so there is inventory outside of my house because cookie sales start the day that we fly out. And I will not be there to be dispersing cookies to our troop members. So,
which is a crime in Minnesota.
We're not doing on-hand inventory anyway. We're focusing more on doing booth sales. But still, if people sell cookies and they want to be able to give them to the people that they sold to, I will not be there. Thankfully, my co-leader is going to be taking inventory from me. Not all of it, but she'll be taking inventory.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you need to come to me because there's going to be too many moving pieces in play for me to be able to drive to you and back and all the other things that need to be taken care of. So
Right. Like making sure all your work stuff is good before you go, making sure your kids' school stuff is good before you go, packing for everybody,
dropping
animal
Kona
prep.
off. Yep. One of our friends, their daughter's going to be checking in on the critters while we're gone.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
Lindsay had asked me to do it, and I said yes initially, but one of her baby critters needs worms, and I can't do it. I just can't do it. I would be. I just have a feeling I would like throw them at her, and that's just not fair. Like, I'd just be like,
Yeah.
blah, and then she has a bunch of like worms. She deserves better than my anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I recognized that
Yeah.
that would probably be the case. If she hadn't
Yeah.
woken up from brumation, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
all you would have had to do is just put water in her dish and for the
The ecosystem. Yeah.
but now that she is awake, it's like, she needs food.
Yeah.
She could probably last a week without eating, but
That's not fair.
because she's been brumating, she doesn't have a whole lot of excess weight to lose, so she needs to eat. So it'll all be fine. I'm not too concerned about it. There are a lot of things I've already taken care of, like holding mail and all that fun stuff. So it's just, there's a lot of other things that need to be taken care of that I'm just like, but as soon as we're on the plane, it won't matter anymore and it'll be fine.
No, that'll be fine. It is what it is. You did what you could, and now, oh no, all you have to do is exist in a nicer place for a week. I hope if you plan on doing nothing, it is the most empty-headed, lovely thing ever. I hope if you're wanting lots of adventure, it's the most adventurous time ever. I hope it's whatever you're needing, because you definitely deserve a week-long vacation.
Thanks. Should we shut her down?
Let's shut her down.
All right. Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
As old as crime.